What's up, ASCTE? Today I'm going to show you how to install a Debian server, and it will be what will host our DNS server, but for now we just have to get the operating system installed. So right now, at this point, you should have a something that looks like this if we were to represent it on a network diagram, and it is a host machine, which is the system that you have right in front of you, the hardware. And then we have a Windows virtual machine here that is connected to a pfSense router that also has sort of a built-in switch also. And of course, these are separated by the different VMware networks. So your host machine is connected to the NAT network and the Windows VM, and half the pfSense router is connected to the host-only network. So what we want to do is we want to add another system out here in the NAT network, and we're going to call it, I'm going to call it just Deb, for Debian, and that will be a server that will host a lot of services that we're going to have in the future. So to get this started, first we're going to need to open up VMware 16 player. Give that a second, and we will want to create a new virtual machine. Browse, and we're going to use Debian NAT installer. Click next. I'm just going to call it Deb. Click next again. I'm going to give it 40 gigs of space just to be safe, on the safe side. And we're going to customize the hardware. We can remove the sound card because it's not necessary. I'm going to give it 4 gigs, and I'm going to see if I can give it 2 processors. Or 2 cores, actually. And of course, the NAT network has to be on NAT, which is good because that means that the networking should pretty much take care of itself. Alright, so we can close that, and we can finish, and it should boot up on its own. Put the cursor inside, and we're going to want to do the install option, which should be the second one. Alright, so we'll select English, United States, American English, let it run through its component setup. I'm just going to call it Deb because that's the host name and the computer's name. There'll be no domain name, so you can leave that blank and just click on continue. And the root password should be something you remember. So if you forget the root password, you would probably have to reinstall from scratch because it can be very hard to reset or recover. Let me see. There we go. And I want the full name for a new user. I'm just going to call mine C. Crosby for myself. And change password for the new user. Use that. This one isn't as hard to recover because you could just use the root account to reset the password if need be. You can choose the central time zone. Right, it's going to want to ask how we want to set up our disk. The easiest option is just to say guided, use entire disk. And then we only have one disk, so accept the defaults there. Left arrow over to yes, and it's installing the base system, which should not take very long. Alright, so that has finished. We don't have any additional media, so we can select no there, and then select United States. And this is where it's wanting to have us input where all the packages we're going to install are. So it says right there, usually deb.debian.org is a good choice, so we will choose that. We don't have a proxy set up, so we can leave that blank, tab over to continue. And now it will retrieve all the files needed from the repository that we selected. And it's going to begin installing the software. This can take a few minutes, not too long, but I'll pause it and come back on the other end. Okay, so it looks like it wants to know if we would like to participate in a package usage survey. It's like no. Allow it to continue. There we are. Now here, do not just quickly go to continue. Instead, we want to unselect the desktop environment and also unselect GNOME. Arrow down to SSH server and select that, and then hit tab and go to continue and allow it to install the rest of the way. Without the GUI environment and a lot of the tools that come installed by default, this will make its footprint a lot smaller and allow us to run a lot more virtual machines on our host. So we'll let that finish, and then we will continue on with setup. All right, so it is finished. And now it wants to install the Grub bootloader. So the Grub bootloader is what allows Linux to boot on a machine, so it's very important. So we will install that by selecting yes. And it's going to ask for which hard drive. We only have one, so down arrow, and then hit enter. Go through installing the rest of it. All right, so it says installation is complete. So we can now hit continue, and it should reboot into the operating system. Just let this time out, or you can hit enter. And if we see a simple login screen, that means we've done everything correctly. So let me install some or minimize some of these. Okay, so to get started, we're going to want to log in as root. And we want to run apt-get update and apt-get upgrade -y, and this will just make sure that all of our repository lists are updated, and also all of our libraries are their most current version, and which they should be because we use a net installer, but just to be sure, so that's good. And we're going to need to install a few pieces of software, so we can do apt-get install. We're going to need sudo so that we can have regular users do elevated tasks. We're going to need curl, vim, and tmarks. Enter. It's going to ask to it's going to say it needs a few, about 46 megs, so that's been done. All right, so now we need to look at our users, which we have one, and we need to add this user to the sudo group. So in order to do that, we need to do a user mod, and then -a for add, and -g for group, I believe. And we want to add them to sudo, and the user that we want to do this to is the one we created during install. So hit enter there. Okay, that's good. Now we can exit out of this, and we can try to log in as our user. To test, we can see let's see, etsy shadow. You say permission denied, so we type in sudo more etsy shadow, and there we go. So that worked out, and we can now we have the ability to log in. or to log in and perform elevated tasks as our user. So we should not need to log in as root anymore. So now we can see if our SSH server is running. Type IP8 to get our IP address. So it looks like this one is 23.141, and that can be seen right there. So let's see if we can log in using this. So I'll open up a command prompt, and it was 23.141. All right, so SSH. There we go. Say yes for that. All right, good. So now we won't actually even need to use our terminal screen on our Debian anymore, so we can exit out of that. And we can minimize there. And yes, so that is a fully installed Debian workstation. Next, we will install Docker so that we can turn this into a DNS server. So we'll see you then, and I'll make that into a separate video. Great. We'll see you later, AACTE.